Hello, everybody. All right, welcome to the Mikestand. Today, of course, is Monday, October 6th, 2025. So hopefully everybody's having a good start to the week thus far. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Of course, a friendly reminder to you guys, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Um, Again, another reminder as well. After the show tonight, of course, I have to call in to find out if I have to go into jury duty tomorrow. I'm on call, as it were. So if you see that if you see that there's no show tomorrow, that'll be why. But and that'll be kind of the way it is for the rest of the week. All the shows are still scheduled as of now, but pending on whether or not I have to go in for jury duty. This will just be this one week, hopefully. May either run its course. I may go in and they may excuse me right away, and hopefully we'll be done with it for a while. So, anyways, let me see now. Pooh. Anyways, I said we'll give it a few minutes to give people a chance to come in before we get started. Let me see here. Yeah, so got into of course some of the August some of the cartoons that came out in August of 1931, as it were. Okay. Oh, there we go. Hey, I'll have to take a quick peek at that because I think I just saw something. Didn't even realize. Hey, Metal. Thanks for popping in, my friend. Um, Hopefully you had a good day. I know you were playing that Honkai game, Honkai Rail game. Hopefully you were having fun with that. So now that we got some people in here, I guess I might as well talk a little bit about what's on tap for it. So got some articles from. Well, actually, even before I get to that, let me finish what I was saying just before I noticed that Metal came on here, and this is something he'll probably kind of enjoy, or at least, well, this is probably something he'll kind of may get into a little bit here. So one of the cartoons I watched today was Woody Woodpecker cartoon called The Screwdriver. I was playing Genshin Impact today. Same creators as Honkai Story. Okay. Yeah, I've heard a lot about Genshin. I know Hiro Hey also, I think, is a big Genshin Impact fan as well. So, anyways, so, um, anyways, I was watching some of the cartoons earlier, and one of them was the Screwdriver, which was the third Woody Woodpecker cartoon. Well, technically, it was second in the Woody Woodpecker series. His third appearance, and of course, Woody's first appearance was in the Andy Panda cartoon Knock Knock. I'm going to be doing chores now in between streams, so I'll be in and out of earshot. Okay, well, I hope you'll hear this what I'm about to mention here. So, the Screwdriver happened to be the last Woody Woodpecker cartoon that Mel Blanc did. It was and of course the cop in that show was the last voice Mel Blanc did before he signed the exclusivity contract with Leon Schlesinger Productions, aka Warner Brothers. So of course they still continue to use his Guess Who portion for the Woody Woodpecker openings. You know, till like the end of the series, and laugh until 1951. So that was a bit of a piece of animation history right there for you. But with that, now let's talk a little bit about what I'll be covering tonight. So I'll be going over 3 articles from MeTV Tunes, some interesting stuff. Now, including before he was Robert Barone, Brad Garrett was one of the 2 stupid dogs. Now, I was aware Brad Garrett did some voice work along with his comedy work. Of course, he was the voice of Tripticon in the G1 Transformers cartoon. I did not know, though, he was part of 2 Stupid Dogs. I had heard, too, I think he'd been in he'd lent his voice to some other stuff as well. Let's see. 6 lessons Chuck Jones learned from Tex Avery. And then fans were furious when Popeye and Olive Oyl got married. So we got some interesting profile pieces there. Of course, we also will have the wrestling wrap-up, get all caught up on the latest on happened over the weekend, as well as looking ahead to this weekend, as well as tonight and this weekend from WWE, AEW, and even TNA. Of course, WWE will be doing their Crown Jewel event from Perth, Australia this Saturday. Our time, it will be more like in the morning, as that drastic time difference. And then Sunday, of course, will be TNA's big pay-per-view, Bound for Glory. So we'll see what all that's all about. We'll get kind of caught up on everything that happened over the weekend. Friday Night SmackDown, Collision on Saturday night. Looking ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw as well. And then, of course, from there, we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So with all that being said, one last, of course, friendly reminder to both my Rumble and YouTube viewers. If you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's get into the content here. Let's get into what everybody's been wanting to find out. So what will we be, let's see, what has Mike found today in terms of what we can talk a little bit about here. Alrighty then, there we go. Now, as I said before, I was aware of the fact that Brad Garrett had done some voice work. All right, oh boy, come on, get singled. All right, there we go. I was aware that Brad Garrett did some voice work in the past. Obviously, I don't know everything he did, but the only thing I really knew of was that he was Tripticon and G1 Transformers cartoon. But apparently, he lent his voice to 2 Stupid Dogs here as well. But let's see what this article has to say about all that. Before he was Robert Barone, Brad Garrett was one of 2 Stupid Dogs. Everybody loves Big Dog. Article posted on October 1st, 2025, which of course was last Tuesday, I believe. Let's see. No, today's the 6th. Last Wednesday, rather. By MeTV Toon staff. So let's see what we got here. Before the success of Everybody Loves Raymond, Brad Garrett was a stand-up comedian trying to make it in Hollywood. And at first, he found his way in as a cartoon voice actor. His first role was in animation was in 1985's Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling, where he voiced Hulk Hogan. So wow, yeah, you learn something new every day, right? He was Hulk's voice in the Rockin' Wrestling cartoon. From there, he landed roles on cartoons like the Transformers, which I of course mentioned as Triptychon, the Real Ghostbusters, and the Jetsons, and Jetsons the movie. For years, Garrett balanced voice acting, stand-up, and performing live roles whenever he could land them. One of his pivotal voice acting roles before Everybody Loves Raymond was Big Dog in Two Stupid Dogs. When asked about the role in an interview with Screen Rant, Garrett said, in small quotes here, in parentheses, Big Dog's voice, unparenthesed, was a little bit dim in A Bug's Life. We love Two Stupid Dogs, unquote. Garrett used Big Dog's voice as the inspiration or launching point for playing the big, sensitive beetle, Dim. But between Two Stupid Dogs and A Bug's Life, he landed the role of a lifetime, Robert Barone. I guess as part of Everybody Loves Raymond. If I understand correctly, he was like, in that he was, I think he was like Ray Romano's brother or brother-in-law, or something like that in the show. During Raymond and up to today, Garrett continued his work in cartoons, recently appearing in the Disney movies like Tangled, Ratatouille, and Finding Dory. Wow, so that was a pretty quick article. Watch Two Stupid Dogs and The Secret Squirrel Show on MeTV Tunes Saturdays at 12 midnight Eastern, 11 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Pacific. Now that's, of course, for on the East Coast there, that's Saturday night to Sunday morning. So 12 midnight Eastern, 11 Pacific, and 9 or 11 a.m. Central, or 11 p.m. Central, and 9 p.m. Pacific. Alrighty then. So there we go. That one. That was a very quick article. That was a very quick article. And of course, feel free to comment and or ask questions. Anything grabs your attention. All right. So let's move on to the next article here. 6 lessons Chuck Jones learned from Tex Avery. Or let's see what we can learn from the King of Screwballs. Article posted October 2nd, 2025, which was of course last Thursday, by MeTV and staff. And we have in the picture there, of course, we got Daffy, Elmer, and Bugs. Or Mel Blanc doing the voice of Daffy and Bugs there. And of course, for the majority of his time, up until his passing in 1999, Elmer Fudd was voiced by the late great Arthur Q. Bryan. All right, so let's see. So after animation titan Fred Tex Avery passed away in 1980, his protege, Chuck Jones, wrote a tribute to him in the LA Times titled, quote, "Farewell to a genius of funny," unquote. Now, it's funny how we're talking a little bit about Tex Avery here as well, because So I'm watching cartoons right now. I'm going through 1941 right now. And from what I found out, from what I read in the notes, I believe it was in July of 1949, just prior to the release of The Heckling Hare, Leon Schlesinger and Tex Avery had a bit of a quarrel over something within The Heckling Hare, only for Avery to walk out of the studio, get promptly suspended for a month, and then eventually moved on to MGM at that point. So interesting here how we're talking a little bit about that though. Jones began his Looney Tunes career as an assistant animator in Avery's unit and spent years learning the art of cartoons at the foot of the master. Quote, Avery was a genius, unquote, Jones wrote. Quote, I was as ignorant of his genius as I suppose Michelangelo's apprentices were oblivious to the fact that they too were working with a genius, unquote. It was hard for Jones to put Avery's lessons into words because Avery didn't teach by speaking, but by doing. Quote, he was not one to pontificate, but for all of us who worked beside him, the message was loud and clear. By his example, he taught us, unquote. While he didn't have word-for-word lessons from Avery, Jones created a list of all the unofficial lessons Avery taught him about cartoons and comedy. Let's see what we can learn from Tex Avery as written by Chuck Jones. Subject, quote, you must love what you caricature. You must not mock it, unless it is ridiculously self-important, like the solemn live-action travelogues of that day, unquote. Lightning versus lightning bug. Quote, you must learn to respect that golden atom, that single frame of action, that 1/24th of a second, because the difference between lightning and the lightning bug may hinge on that single frame. Now, I'm guessing what that means is it's kind of like compare lightning like really, lightning causes a lot of damage. Lightning bug does not. So I guess that, in other words, when you get lightning in a bottle, that's said to be a good thing. Whereas if you get a lightning bug, it's just like a little bug with like kind of like a firefly or something like that, little light on the tail or something like that. So sure, somebody out there might be able to explain that better than I could. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Anyways. Number 3, impulsivity. Quote, you must respect that impulsive thought and try to implement it. You cannot perform as a director by what you already know. You must depend on the flash of inspiration that you do not expect and do not know, unquote. And there's bugs right there with this carrot. Number 4, laughter. Quote, you must remember always that only man of all creatures can blush or needs to. And only man can laugh or needs to. And that if you are in the trade of helping others to laugh and to survive by laughter, then you are privileged indeed. Unquote. Number 5, character. Quote, remember always that character is all that matters in the making of great comedians, in animation and in live action. Unquote. Number 6, timing. Quote, keep always in your mind, your heart, and your hand that timing is the essence, the spine, and the electrical magic of humor and of animation, unquote. Yeah, timing can be very interesting. You never know how things can turn out with timing. So watch Bugs Bunny and Friends on MeTV Tunes weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 p.m. Pacific, Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 Central, 5 p.m. Pacific, and Sundays at 12 noon Eastern, 11 a.m. Central, and 9 a.m. Pacific. Alrighty then, so we made it to 2/3 of the articles we're going to be going over tonight, so we'll get to the last one here. All right. So now with this, our last article here that we're going to be going over here. Fans were furious when Popeye and Olive Oil got married. Speak now or forever hold your spinach. Article published October 3rd, which was last Friday by MeTV News. Now, of course, there was it might have been Hanna-Barbara, or still might have been. Well, I think it might have been Hanna-Barbara or Paramount Cartoon. I don't know. But in 1988, of course, they did have a cartoon based on Popeye and Olive Oil, basically being married and raising a family, Popeye and Son. But this is probably more alluding further back in time. So, okay, so we got all that. All right, so here we go. Normally, when characters stuck in a will they, won't they relationship finally get together, fans rejoice. But in 1999, when the special comic book The Wedding of Popeye and Olive Oil came out, many fans were upset. It took them 1999 in the comics to get them married, huh? Oh, boy. Considering that Popeye's comic started in the late 30s there. In some of the early issues of King Comics from Dell Comics. Or no, not Dell. I'm sorry, not Dell. David McKay, actually. David McKay Publications. After meeting in the comic strip in 1929, Popeye and Olive Oil came close to getting married several times in the cartoons. They nearly married many, but Bluto sabotages their wedding in Nearly Weds, unquote. Later, in Bride and Gloom, quote unquote, Olive Oyl self-sabotages the relationship after having a nightmare about marrying Popeye. Yeah, I think I do remember. I think I do remember that one. If that one's the one I'm thinking of, that was actually the first appearance of the characters that would later be identified more as Popeye's nephews. Remember, there was one where she has a nightmare where she is Mrs. Popeye, and their four sons, who would later be retconned to being Popeye's nephews, Peep-Eye, Pip-Eye, Poop-Eye, Pup-Eye. I think Poop-Eye was initially named Pep-Eye. But with that being said, she had a nightmare, and they were just so reckless and rambunctious. It's like, I don't want to be in that situation. So anyways, over and over they became engaged and unengaged as part of the never-ending love triangle between Popeye, Olive, and Bluto. And that is where fans' problem with the marriage of Popeye and Olive lies. The El Paso Times interviewed members of the official Popeye fan club after the wedding comic was announced. And fan club president Mike Brooks said, quote, "We're not throwing any rice here in Chester. We know Popeye would never hitch up with Olive. It would destroy the love triangle. The wedding is a pure fantasy, a scheme, a disgrace," unquote. Well, I think what a lot of the I think a lot of it is that people appreciate kind of the comedy of errors that comes about as Popeye and Bluto are trying to woo Olive. Now, even before the comic came out, as I mentioned earlier, they did make a cartoon where, well, it's kind of funny, Popeye and Son, which came out in 1988, I believe, featured Popeye and Olive as a married couple with their son, Popeye Jr. Bluto had got married to, essentially it's like, they had families, and of course, similar to kind of similar to Goof Troop a few years later for Disney, where rivals, but just without the Goof Troop though didn't have the romantic angle between the three adults that obviously Popeye and Son did. But anyways, other fans pointed out that Popeye and Olive didn't necessarily need to get married because in the 1987 cartoon Popeye and Son, yeah, okay, 87. I actually thought it was 88, but Popeye and Son, they are married with children. This made a whole wedding comic book feel slightly redundant. Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe they wanted to, maybe they wanted to try to make the wedding canon in the comic, but as many of you know, sometimes comic canon is not necessarily the same as TV canon, right? We've seen that, Super Friends, for example, as compared to, well, look at DC Comics and a lot of the shows that came out from DC, right? A lot of the television shows, the television shows, for the most part, for many years, had kind of had their own continuity. I think Superman, the 1988 Superman cartoon, may have been one of the first ones to actually truly kind of more or less adapt what was actually in the comics into the cartoon. And then, of course, later on with the DCAU, that was but the DCAU itself was its own canon too. Talking about comic adaptations and all that. Let's see, continuing on here. Fans also felt that because this change was not introduced by or with the blessing of Popeye creator E.C. Seeger, who passed away in 1938, a marriage of Popeye and Olive was a significant change that would impact the future of all comics and cartoons, and a change of this magnitude, made without the creator, felt like a step too far. Yeah, but we've had situations like that. We've had situations like that before. I mean, look at Superman and Lois Lane, right? You know, for many years they had just simply courted. It wasn't until maybe within the last couple of eight, maybe the Bronze Age and modern age is when when they've been shown to like have gotten married and in comics and even in some of the more recent animated features. To appease the Popeye purists, King Features Syndicate was quick to address fan complaints by specifying that the wedding comic book was a one-shot fantasy that would not impact future comic strips or cartoons, and that Popeye would remain a perpetual bachelor in the series canon. So basically what they're saying is that the wedding special was basically like an offshoot canon. It's like kind of an Elseworld, as it was, right? Kind of an offshoot, kind of, for those fans who wanted to see Popeye and all, get married. I'm sure there, just as most fans probably didn't want to see that because of the comedy that comes from the whole love triangle stuff. There probably are some fans that wanted to see what might happen if Popeye and Olive did get married. I mean, they teased it throughout many of the cartoons, even dating back to the Golden Age. We just talked about it earlier, about how they, came up, and of course we did from a cartoon perspective. I was corrected here in the article, 1980. I thought it was 1988, but Popeye and Son, right? But we actually did get to see Popeye and Olive Oyl as a married couple. So, and of course, the thing is, Popeye and Son came out after, of course, Jack Mercer's passing. I think probably one of the last times Jack Mercer voiced Popeye was actually in the animated opening of the 1980 Popeye movie that starred Robin Williams. But anyways, thank goodness for that. Brooks felt Popeye would be appalled at the concept, quote, as Popeye would say, the whole idea of marrying is disgusting. Watch Popeye and Pals on MeTV Tunes. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 Central. Sundays at 8 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 Central, 7 Pacific. Wow. I didn't know that they added him on Sundays. Or back on Sundays. What? 10 Pacific. So, alrighty then. So there we go. That's all we got for the articles tonight. All right, so let's see, 35 minutes. So yeah, we made good time then for what I was trying to do here. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go through the wrestling wrap up real quick. We're going to move on right on to the wrestling wrap up here. Look back over this weekend's SmackDown and Collision. Look ahead to tonight's Raw, and then look ahead to this weekend's big events in Perth and on TNA as well. All right, So first off, looking back to last Friday Night SmackDown. This last Friday Night SmackDown from the 3rd, coming from the Heritage Bank Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. Opening in another one of his open challenges, Sami Zayn successfully retained the United States title over Aleister Black, as of course Zayn did get some help from interference from Damian Priest, as Damian Priest, Aleister Black, their feud is continuing. I believe this set up a match between the two of them at this Saturday's Crown Jewel. We'll have to double check that when we see later. Let's see. So NXT North American and WWE Speed Champion Sol Ruca teaming with Zarya defeated the Green Regime duo of Alba Fire and Chelsea Green. As right now, Piper Niven is apparently on the shelf with an undisclosed injury. We haven't been privy to. Supposedly, this injury might be career-threatening. In their first time teaming together, Javon Evans and Ray Phoenix defeated former AAA World Tag Team Champions Los Garzas, Angel and Berto. Let's see. And in the main event, saw the Vision duo of Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, with Paul Heyman in the corner, defeating undisputed champion Cody Rhodes and Randy Orton in the main event. So that happened on Friday night. And as we move ahead to Saturday night, look back to what happened on Collision on Saturday. They find that. On this past Saturday's Collision, which was held from the RP Funding Center in Lakeland, Florida, with, of course, Nigel McGuinness and Tony Schiavone, along with, at other times, Matt Menard and Sammy Guevara on commentary. The opening match saw a 6-man tag match, the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, and John Moxley, and finally, in the first time since this threesome got together, got the win against the team of Tommy Billington, Adam Priest, and Jay Lethal. Of course, the Death Riders had Marina Shafir, Pac, and Wheeler Yuta in their corner. Jamie Hayter defeated Anna Jay in a singles match. The Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, Los Paxa Ingobernables duo of Rush and Sammy Guevara, with Jalisco in their corner, defeated Cha-Cha Charlie, and Shane Stetson in just under 2 minutes. In his, I think, third match since his return, Eddie Kingston defeated Verlistico in a one-on-one match. Hook was in Eddie Kingston's corner. In another 6-man tag match, Don Callis family trio of Josh Alexander, TNT champion Kyle Fletcher, and G1 Climax 2025 G1 Climax winner Konosuke Takeshita with El Clone in their corner. Defeated M&M TV's Johnny TV, Mansoor, and Mason Madden with Taya Valkyrie in their corner. Kevin Knight of Jet Speed, the Jet Kevin Knight, along with his Speedball Mike Bailey and Willow Nightingale in his corner, defeated Dax Harwood with Cash Wheeler and Stokely in his corner in a one-on-one win. And in the main event, Orange Cassidy, former believe three-time AEW International Champion Orange Cassidy, teaming with Paragon's Kyle O'Reilly and Roderick Strong, defeated the Don Callis trio of Lance Archer, Hechicero, and Rocky Romero. So now, as we move ahead to tonight's Monday Night Raw. Did I grab that? Tonight's Monday Night Raw here. Which will be going down in Dallas, Texas here. As this will be the go-home Raw before this Saturday's Perth show, and I'll get to that in a moment here. The women's intercontinental title will be on the line as Becky Lynch is set to defend against Maxine Dupree. And another women's match, Lyra Valkyria will be taking on Roxanne Perez of the Judgment Day. So those two matches have been announced for tonight. Now for the updated card for this Saturday's Crown Jewel in Perth, Australia. The WWE will be in Perth this whole weekend as they'll have SmackDown on Friday night. And then they'll have Raw next Monday night. So this will be airing on ESPN from the RAC Arena in Perth, Western Australia, Australia. So the four matches that are signed thus far for the for Crown Jewel, John Cena will be taking on AJ Styles, and I think the second to his last final match of his career. The Kabuki Warriors, Asuka and Kairi Sane, will be taking on Io Sky and Rhea Ripley. As you have three former women's world champions in that group in terms of from the WWE aspect of it. And then the Crown Jewel titles will be on the line as for the WWE Women's Crown Jewel 2025 title. WWE Women's World Champion Stephanie Vaquer will be taking on WWE Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton. And the men's title and the Crown Jewel title on the men's side, WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins will be taking on Undisputed Champion Cody Rhodes. So that's all we got for the wrestling wrap-up. So now what we're going to do is, of course, we're going to move on to this day in each history. So let me just 89, 85, 2020, and then 2000. All right. So now, with today being Monday, October the 6th, 2025, let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. So, first off, I'm going to head back 40 years. As on this date 40 years ago today, back in 1985, World Class Championship Wrestling, the company still an affiliate at the time of National Wrestling Alliance. From the Cotton Bowl in Dallas, Texas, held its second annual Cotton Bowl extravaganza. The main event saw for the NWA American Tag Team titles in a hair versus hair, no disqualification match. The team known as the Cosmic Cowboys, Kerry and Kevin Von Erich, defeated the dynamic duo of Chris Adams and Gino Hernandez. Iceman King Parsons defeated One Man Gang and Atik Bismuth, the One Man Gang who would go on to become Akeem, the African Dream, in WWE a couple years later. In round 3, via countout, Brian Adias retained the NWA Texas Heavyweight title over Jack Victory. The Great Kabuki defeated Mark Lewin by DQ. The Fantastics, Bobby Fulton and Tommy Rogers, defeated Dave Peterson and John Tatum in a singles match. Dave Peterson would go on in the future AWA, the last one half of the last AWA Tag Team Champions with the Trooper Del Wilkes. And the show opened up with Tim Brooks defeating Scott Casey in just under 5 minutes. So 40 years ago today, the second Cotton Bowl extravaganza from World Class Championship Wrestling took place. Now, moving on to the next piece in each history, as we move ahead to the year 1999, 26 years ago today. On this date, 26 years ago today. Did I find that? On this date, 26 years ago today, the 490th issue of Archie from Archie Comics went on sale on this date back in 1999. Sold for $1.79, 32 pages. Such stories included Fan Elaine, Leave Me Alone, Sofa So Good, Countdown to 510, Lip Tilt. So, 26 years ago today, the 490th issue of Archie went on sale. Moving ahead 1 year later to the year 2000, on this date in the year 2000, let's see, the following anime would premiere in Japan on this date in the year 2000. Those would be Argenta Soma from Sunrise and Sci-Fi Harry from APPP. So on this date in the year 2000, Sunrise's Argento Soma and APPP Sci-Fi Harry both premiered on Japanese television on this date back in the year 2000. Let's see. And moving ahead to the year 2020, 5 years ago today. Oops. 5 years ago today, the year 2020. Let's see. Warner Brothers Animation and Hanna-Barbara's Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, as well as Ruthless Studios' Trump versus the Illuminati, both premiered on this date back on October 6th, 2020. So 5 years ago today, Warner Brothers Animation, Hanna-Barbara's Happy Halloween Scooby-Doo, and Ruthless Studios' CG animated Trump versus the Illuminati. Both premiered in theaters on this date 5 years ago. From what I understand, Trump versus the Illuminati was actually very panned. I don't know necessarily why it was panned so badly. Because I think a lot of people just had, aside from maybe the guy who voiced it. In this case, what it is a Chinese Trump clone is brought back in the future, is brought back to basically battle alien race known as the Illuminati. That was the basic storyline. All right, so with that being said, that's all I have for you guys tonight. I hope you all enjoyed the show, and I thank everybody for being here tonight. Hopefully, unless I do get called in for jury duty tomorrow. I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow night. If you'll see if my show, if I have to cancel the show, I'll probably be doing all that in a few minutes here, finding out if I have to go in or not. But with that being said, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here next time on the Mikestand. So until then, bye. Yes, so I can find the cursor. Bye.